Well, good morning from sunny Los Angeles. How is everyone? Please say hi in the chat. Let me know how the sound is. So far, so good on this mic. Some people say it's a little on the quiet side. I did adjust the volume last time. I'm trying to speak more aggressively into the mic. But let me know. How's the sound? How is everybody today? It is September 2nd after a holiday weekend for those of us in the US after Labor Day. So I'm still drinking coffee, still trying to wake up. I have a lot of stuff going on right now. So I'm going to tell you stuff that's going on right now. First of all, I got my first royalty statement for my books. So Fashion School in a Book and Fashion School in a Book Design Journal. Okay. For those of you who don't know, I wrote a book all about fashion design process, and it includes illustration techniques for designers, not necessarily for, fashion illustrators, but sketching and rendering techniques specifically for designers and the whole design process and how things work in the industry and, how to create projects for your portfolio, that sort of thing. And then I created a design journal, which is a workbook. I don't have it handy to help you kind of work through design process that you can fill in and all this stuff, right? So I got my royalty statements. My publisher, they're a smaller publisher. And so they just do royalty statements twice a year. And my books, the ebook versions came out in November, and then they launched the print versions like in the US January of this year, and then kind of rolled out to other countries in February, March, so forth. And so I got my first royalty statement, and I was really pleasantly surprised because I was kind of like, what if I kept asking my husband, I was like, what if I don't make as much as my advance? Do I have to pay back the balance of my advance? And he's like, no, they have to consider that a loss. And I was like, okay. But I didn't. I actually made double my advance, which is crazy. Just for me, not the revenue for the publisher, but just me personally with my percentage royalties and everything, I made back double my advance. So, I mean, now I have to pay back my advance, so they're going to withhold the advance amount, which is fine. Like that's how that works. But yeah, I made back double my advance. And I don't know if y'all were with me at the time, but after I finished writing that book, I was on such a high. I enjoyed writing that book so much. And then in the hustle of just not enjoying my main channel anymore and just being discouraged by the algorithm and YouTube fighting against me and all that stuff and trying to come up with new content and with this idea of starting a new brand and trying to figure some ways to not go completely crazy, work on my mental health, dealing with taking care of my husband, like all these things. I kind of forgot how much I really enjoyed writing the book. And so after I saw my royalty statement, I was like, do I need to write another book? Because I was gonna. I don't know if you were there with me, but at the time I was like, oh, I want to write another book. And so I had this idea for a book because at the time I had posted polls like, do you think I should write a color theory for fashion design book or a pattern making book? And I really thought that the color theory for fashion design was going to win out because there's so many pattern making books out there. But a lot of y'all were like, these pattern making books suck. And I was like, okay. Because I personally didn't really learn pattern making from a book. I went to school and I had very good pattern making teachers. And so we had a book that we barely followed, but that book was actually not like a published book, but it was a manual that the pattern making teachers at my school created just for our school, Otis. And so, yeah, like I look at pattern making books now, but I look at it through the lens of someone who already knows how a lot of the lingo and a lot of the processes, and it's a little bit like specific details related to this kind of sleeve and this kind of pant leg, whereas apparently someone learning from scratch is like, what is this? So I had this idea of making not just a pattern making book, but like a how to make clothes book. And by that, I don't mean a sewing book. I mean like, okay, so let's say you, for example, let's say you want to make a t-shirt. And so this is like a t-shirt, like a sketch of a t-shirt on a body, and this is how you design for the proportions. And these are kind of the fundamental elements of a t-shirt in design, and then how they translate to a flat. And then this is how you would draft a pattern for a t-shirt. And then these are some of the stitches that you have to consider, like you would need a cover stitch for the hem and the sleeve hem, and you would need a rib knit collar. And then I would list some of the fabrications that you should look up in order to make t-shirts, like, you know, cotton jersey is very standard, but it can be stiff. Some people don't like that. You know, modal is a very popular rendition these days for people who like something that's silkier and drapier, you know, all that stuff. And so I was thinking about a book like that where it's really about how to design a garment and how to make a garment, and not necessarily like, here are all the different sleeve patterns you can create. And so now I'm kind of like, oh, do I need to make that book? Do I need to go back to writing books because I like books so much? I did really enjoy the book. So I am going to talk to my editor because she was CC'd on the royalties email. And I'm like, what do you think? Do you think I sold enough to warrant me writing another book? Let me see. Oh my God, the sun is like angled really funny on my face right now, but whatever. Okay, so let me scroll through some comments. Sound is great. Thank you, Denise. Violet Femme. Hi, Zoe. Hope you had an enjoyable 3-day weekend. I did. I hope you did too. My bestie in Palm Springs drove out for a visit, and then my bestie from fashion school joined us for a day, Susie. So we were all hanging out. Hello, Briege. I think that's how you pronounce it. Hi, Rachel. Rachel says, I loved fashion school in a book. Definitely going to be rereading it and referring back to it a bunch. Awesome. That's exactly what I want to hear. Violet Femme Double, the advance is awesome. I know, right? I felt really proud of myself, and I don't often feel very proud of myself. So, yeah. Bree says, well done. Such a good book as a touchstone for the industry. Thank you so much. And, you know, if you did buy the book and you enjoyed it, I would appreciate if you leave a review or a rating at whatever website you ordered it from, if you did order it online. Here's the thing. As someone who wants to sell a lot of books, of course my book is on Amazon, and I want a lot of Amazon sales because it has the biggest platform in terms of sharing books and sharing ratings of books and like putting books out there. As someone who is anti, you know, unethical labor practices, I'm like, I don't really want, like, I have such a love-hate relationship with Amazon. So yeah, I mean, if you bought your book from Barnes and Noble, or I mean, not Target. Target's not great. You know, other platforms, please drop me a review or rating. Thank you very much. Rachel says, congrats on your success with the royalties. You deserve it. Thank you. Thank you. Jason asked me, are you racist? Probably. I think everyone has some racist tendencies because of how they were conditioned socially. I think everyone has preconceived notions about other people that we have been fed from our parents, from media sources, and it is our job as adults to unlearn these prejudices and just do better every day. And, the thing about that is there are always like two reactions, right? There's always the gut reaction to a thing. And then it's really what you do with that reaction that's the important part. Like that gut reaction is often something you're reacting to it in your hindbrain, the way you were socially conditioned through friends, family, media, all these things. But what you choose to do with that reaction, that initial gut reaction, is actually who you are as a person. That's what your character is. So if you are someone who is trying to be a better person, you check yourself and you shut that off. You shut that valve off. And that's what everybody needs to work on. Everyone has some bad tendencies, these gut reactions, and it's our job to be better people to the world at large. Rachel says, I would love a book like that. I'm mostly self-taught and feel behind when it comes to a lot of the technical stuff. Yeah, I think that more than a pattern making book, like, because a lot of books, and the reason why I wrote my first book, the way I did, is because a lot of information is disjointed. It's like focusing on this specific skill and focusing on that specific skill, and it doesn't like really get into how it flows with everything else. And I'm not disparaging the other books, like these tech design books, these product development books where they talk about specs and flats and stuff. I love those books, like where they really hone in on what you need to do in this stage of the process. But I don't think there are a lot of books out there that show you the whole process, and I think that's kind of something that we need. So let me scroll back. I love your idea of the how to make clothes book with fabric recommendations. Yeah, fabric. I mean, I say this all the time. Okay, if you've been following me for a minute, I'm sure you're tired of me saying it. But two things: fiber technology is the future of fashion, and number two, anyone who works any role in fashion, it would behoove them to learn more about fabric. Always. There's no role within fashion where knowledge of fabric doesn't benefit. When you're a stylist, the appearance and the drape and how you're going to fit all of that is beneficial. Designers, obviously, tech design, obviously, even when you're like running around, like let's say you're a wardrobe consultant, you want to run around, you want to communicate with other people the kind of materials that you're looking for and the effect that you want. And if your client says, I want this kind of effect, it's not your client's job to know about fabrics. It's your job as the wardrobe stylist to understand fabrics and know what's going to give them that effect. And I remember one time I was working on a TV thing and somebody asked me, do you have any requests for the wardrobe team? And I told them well, I only wear black. I am completely prepared to bring my own wardrobe, by the way, okay? And also, I sweat on camera. I sweat when I'm nervous. I sweat when I'm working. I sweat on camera. I need natural fibers. And this is beneficial for everyone, that I wear natural fibers. And then I was like, I emphasized again, I am prepared to bring my own wardrobe. You do not need to go send a bunch of people out to buy a whole bunch of stuff that is only going to get worn once. It's fine. But yeah. Unrelated, but I just bought my first fashion book. It's Milan Style by Leah Ferran Graves, and Delulu Me felt like a mini you. Okay. I've never heard of that book or that writer, so I don't know what that means. For that to be a mini me, whatever. Anyway, I'm hoping that's a compliment. Stacy James says, bonjour Zoe, bonjour Stacy, hello. So yeah, that's where I am with the book thing. I'm kind of like riding high on I'm not a New York Times bestseller or anything, but I'm doing pretty good for my first royalty statement. So yeah, please buy my book and read it and enjoy it and rate it and review it. Thank you very much. And if you don't have the money, You know what you can do? Okay, first of all, you can request it from your local library, and then your library will buy it. I will get the sale, and you can borrow it from the library. It's a win win situation. Okay. Number two, you can request it at your local bookstore, and, maybe it'll eventually go on sale. Or maybe just, if you just want to help me for free, request it at different places. So they reach out to my publisher to order the book. That would be also great. Thank you very much. So that's that. Um, and I listen, this was so crazy. I was talking to my husband and I was like, how many books do you have to sell to get on like one of those bestseller lists anyway? And my husband told me, I forget the exact number, but he's like, yeah, just a lot of authors just buy a bunch of their own books so they can say they're a New York Times bestseller. And I don't know if I'm just being naive, but that never occurred to me. Like it's in my contract. I received 50 free copies of each of my books. But that's for me to do whatever I feel like. That number doesn't go to any sales, like any bestseller list sales, any royalty payments, like nothing. Those are just my copies of my book that I can distribute. I've been giving them to books as like thank you. I've been signing them and giving them away to people as thank you gifts for certain people, things like that. So yeah, I'm like, people just be buying like thousands of copies of their own books so that they could sit on a bestseller list. I had no idea. But that's a thing apparently. That is a thing apparently. Oh my god. Oh my god. Anyway, hello friends. Safa, hi. Salma, it is a compliment law. Okay, thank you. I'm gonna look that book up now. When we get off the live. Yep, there's quite a bit of fraud with the New York Times bestseller list. Listen, the New York Times is a fraud themselves. Okay, I call them the neo-Nazi Times. Their political coverage is a joke. Their op-ed section. The only thing I really truly love about the New York Times is their cooking section. There is a Korean recipe developer, and I learned about him because he posted a recipe for gochujang cookies. They're so freaking good. A couple years ago, I took those gochujang cookies to a holiday party, and they were a hit. They were gone. Gone. And then people were fighting to take like extra cookies home. It was crazy. Because I made a double batch. That's crazy. You know what the New York Times is good for? Games. People love a Wordle. It's like, hey, New York Times, you suck. You should just turn into a game company and a recipe company and call it a day because your news coverage sucks. Whatever. Stacy says everyone and their mama is a best-selling author. I kind of felt like that. And so I was kind of like, well, I didn't become a bestseller. I didn't sell enough to be a bestseller, but also I didn't buy any of my own books. So I guess people consider that investing in themselves. I don't know. So yeah, so I'm really like kind of itching to write another book. And yes, I do get distracted easily. So, and then one of the reasons that my friends are here visiting me is I'm going to go into business with them. And that part is a secret. I mean, what exactly we're doing is a secret, but we are in plans together for the four of us, two of my closest friends and my husband. The four of us are planning to buy a business together. And I'm hoping that I can use some of the revenue from that business to fund my brand and all that stuff, things like that. So that's kind of what's happening. We've been in like heavy conversations about money, like how much money we can each afford to invest and the size of the business we want to buy and all this stuff. And yeah, so I was doing that all weekend. And then if you watched my Watch Me Design Season 3, Episode 2, then at some point I started talking about super lightweight outerwear, which is an idea I've been toying with because most of you know I'm obsessed with outerwear. And I would say that I spend more money personally on outerwear than anything else because it's my favorite category. I and maybe it's because I grew up in Alaska, but I do not feel completely dressed to leave the house unless I'm wearing a jacket. And when you live in LA, your options are kind of limited because it's so hot out. Like it's gonna peak in the 90s today. I know those of you in the Middle East and other countries like that are laughing at me in Celsius. I remember I have a follower who lives in Kuwait, and we were Instagram DMing on Instagram, and they told me, "Good morning, Zoe. It is 60 Celsius in my city right now." Okay, those of you who don't understand Celsius, let me tell you. Okay, I have never experienced 60 Celsius. Okay, but one time I experienced 48 Celsius, and it was so blistering hot. I busted out my phone and I was like, what is this in Fahrenheit? And it is 118 degrees Fahrenheit. So 48 Celsius is 118 Fahrenheit. So imagine what 60 Celsius is. Oh, don't imagine it. That sounds terrible. Oh my God. That's when I first moved to LA. I forget how this topic came up, but when I moved back to LA, so I've lived here before. I went to college here, but you can brew tea at that time. Exactly. That's crazy. And so my husband asked me, like, why would dogs need shoes in LA? Because to him, he's thinking about like snow, rain, something like that. I'm like, the pavement gets so hot. And he thought about it. He's like, ooh, yeah. Like, oh my God. Yeah. So, yikes. As someone from Texas, 40 Celsius is already miserable. Yeah. 40 Celsius is absolutely miserable. 48, I really just wanted to cry. It was so hot, but I felt like the hot tears on my face were going to scald my skin. And we had some activities planned for that day. And I'm like, the only activity I'm doing is sitting in this air conditioned car as we drive home. I cannot. I'm so sorry, but I cannot get out of this car at 48 Celsius. 60 Celsius, I can't even. And I remember one time I went to Las Vegas, and long story short, this particular trip, I did not go to party. It was actually like I used to have a stepmom who was from Vegas. And so I was running a family errand. I was living in LA. I was in my early 20s. I was living in LA, and my stepmom and my dad sent me to Vegas to run a family errand, and my AC had died. And it was 114 outside. And I was like driving around with all my windows open. I got back from Vegas and I was like, first of all, you bitches owe me. Of course, I didn't actually say that to my parents, but I'm like, y'all owe me and you need to fix my AC because I did this thing for you. So hot, so miserable. And yeah. So anyway, so we're doing this business. I'm contemplating the next book, and I'm thinking about lightweight outerwear, which is something I've always wanted to do. Like, I've always been a big fan of Max Mara coats. Like, the rest of their ready to wear is like, whatever. But like, they're big, luscious, beautiful cashmere camel coats. I've always been a big fan of outerwear. You know how much I love working with leather and all these things. But how often am I wearing a big camel hair, wool Melton, cashmere overcoat in LA? Okay. But I like the feel of like wearing a jacket. So, and then in that video, I said something about I actually really want a lace motorcycle jacket. You know, the traditional kind with the diagonal zipper, not the modern motocross style, but like a classic old motorcycle jacket, but all in lace with like maybe an organza backing for structure, like underlined in organza. And I was telling my girlfriend Susie, who I went to fashion school with, and she's like, "Ooh." So I think that's the direction now. Is like I'm really fixated on this, but again, I am not pigeonholing myself into any category so far. But right now, my direction is taking me towards those super lightweight outerwear. And I've already received several comments in that thread where people are like, I live in Australia and lightweight outerwear sounds great. I live in Houston. I'm like, I love this. I love that lace motorcycle jacket. Right? Right? You could use whatever lace, uh, and then just back it with like a sheer fabric and then and you can get metal zippers that are a bit more lightweight. Like you can get as small as like a number 3 zipper with metal teeth. And so you don't even have to sacrifice like the zipper details because a lot of these like giant, especially men's motorcycle jackets, they'll take like a number 8, number 10 zipper. Number 10 zipper is pretty rare, but like definitely a number 5 if you're looking at one that's more like actually just made to be for fashion. But if you're looking at like the true like motorcycle riders wear this to ride and those are their riding leathers, those zippers are like number 7, number 8 zippers, right? With like zippers, that number goes from 1 through 10, and the bigger the number, the bigger the teeth. And so, yeah, the riding jackets, they're like number 7, number 8 zippers. I love a chonky number 10 zipper. Yeah, it's like those zippers are super, super fat. But if I did it in the lace, I could still do like a number 3 metal teeth zipper because like the lace will just flop over and just like die and sag under a really heavy. If I did a more substantial backing, I could maybe do a number 5 zipper, but I would prefer a number 3 zipper for something like lace. And yeah, and then I would experiment with some metal snaps and see how much the lace could hold that. And that's why you would need the backing, because you would have to be strategic as to where you place the snaps if it was only lace. But if you had something like an organza or gazar backing, then you can go through and snap anywhere because they're working together. And this is kind of also already in line with the inspiration images I've been working with before. Because remember how I was saying I wanted to layer like an opaque with a sheer with an embellishment. So imagine like an organza or silk gazar, which is like silk gazar is like thicker than organza and more opaque than organza, but still somewhat sheer. And it is like, it's got that crispness, the body. And so maybe like a gazar or organza with the lace on top, and then I could do some sort of embellishment on top if I wanted to. So, yeah. So that's what I'm thinking right now for the brand while I'm getting distracted with the book. And then I'm going to be posting my video on rayon this week on the main channel. I did want to talk about, where's my thing? I said I would answer this question in today's live stream. Somebody left a comment a while back. So they said, don't you think that with the tariffs that any new startups that could produce in America would be highly wanted in this era of trying to bring back production? Scaling would be the problem because who had bank to open a factory and fit a, I don't know what that emoji is, for apparel in America that a multi-billion-dollar investment alone. Okay. So, and then there was another comment somebody left about how it's not impossible to produce in America. And okay, Yes, I know it's not impossible to produce in America. Okay. I understand that. I'm literally friends with someone who does small run production here in Los Angeles. And that's her business is she does small run production for smaller startup designers, women's wear predominantly. So I know it exists. Okay. But you have to think of the entire supply chain. Okay. It's not just a matter of where things get finished. And that's not the only thing tariffs affect, is not the final thing. It's all the materials that are coming in to finish your product. So let's use the lace motorcycle jacket that I'm this close to just going ahead and sending it out to a sample maker I know and just be like paying her to make it for me, just for me, because I just want one. So I would have to source the silk organza. Who in the US is making silk organza? Hi, Ellen. You're late, but welcome. Who is making silk organza in the US? Okay. I've only ever bought silks from East Asia. Okay. I've bought it from Korea. I've bought Korean silks and I've bought Chinese silks. Who in America is making silk organza? Okay. Ellen, as usual. Girl, you lucky I record these. Anyway, thanks for joining us. And then the lace. Where am I getting lace? Who is making a lace, like a beautiful lace? Like my favorite lace company is Solstice. They're a French company. And so they have a US office. But where am I getting lace? Okay, zippers. Where do I get zippers from? Like all the zipper companies that are working here who will sell you, they'll sell you like 100 zippers here, but they're getting them from overseas. They have offices in Japan, China. When I went to Portland for Functional Fabrics in April, I met the president of YKK Canada. He was there in Portland. Where am I getting zippers? Where am I getting snaps? Like, where am I? I'm trying to think. When I had my old brand, I did buy hang tags and everything. And they did produce here because they were a small local. Okay, so now I can source US made labels and hang tags for fabrics that I cannot get here. And so it's not simply a matter of just the end product. And who's doing my sampling? Maybe I don't find a sampler here that I like. Maybe I do want to do production overseas. When I was at Tex World July. Oh my God, so long ago. I met this guy who was doing really, really beautiful beaded fabrics and beading on fabrics and doing custom beading. And I was like, what if I design the beading pattern? And he was like, we can do that. And I said, what if I don't want beaded fabric, but what if I want you to bead a dress? Like I send you the front panels of a bunch of dresses. Can you do that? He's like, I can do that. And they're in India. And you will not find his pricing in the US. It's impossible to find his pricing in the US. And I already am on Threads fighting for my life with these comments where everyone is like, you want me to pay what for this? Like people get so upset at current pricing that is done with made in China. The comments I received on my why is this polyester dress $300? Like people get so mad. Honestly, like if you can't afford it, just don't buy it. But like people get so mad at the idea that you might be charging X dollars for these things. And I know for a fact that a lot of these brands, they have maxed out. Like they are producing overseas because they are trying to really nail a certain price point at like as low as they can go. And, I have been in many costing meetings where let's say you have 5 jackets, and the idea is to keep them at a certain price range because they're all similar enough. They're all classic leather jackets. Not one of them has like a very weird avant-garde cut. Not one of them has a particular embellishment that would make it obvious that it would be more expensive than the other. They're 5 classic leather jackets, but for reasons that people who don't know how to make clothes don't know. Some sewing processes, some extra materials, some fitting processes are uh, more expensive than others. But you have to, when things look too similar, you have to price them all really similar. And sometimes that means this jacket only gets a 30% markup and this jacket gets a 50% markup. And that's just how you have to do it because of perceived value. And so brands are already like struggling like this. Do not like, and I'm not talking about the luxury brands who are making Dior tote bags for $50 and then charging $5,000. That's a different game. That's a different game. You're paying for marketing. You're like, that's all illegal and unethical and everything. And so don't think about that. But just the everyday designer who is trying to make it work, who is trying to make their pricing as low as they can while still making some money, making sure that their products come together of a particular, price range and everything, and of a particular level of perceived value that their customers are willing to pay for. Like, that's your average designer. And so people get really, really upset because they don't really understand cutting and sewing. And that is what it is. And so there are so many things that I cannot do just in terms of pricing and also just in terms of creativity. Like, there are not a lot of people who can do that level of beading and embellishment work like India can. There really is. I'm sure if I looked for 3 years, I could find some old lady in the mountains of Tennessee, whatever, okay? But broad strokes, like, I've worked backstage at Rahul Mishra twice now, and whatever you want to say about his particular style, and maybe his aesthetic doesn't suit yours, and maybe you don't think he's a very good designer, whatever. That embellishment work, up close and personal, okay? He employs 1,500 people in his facilities in India, and that beadwork, whatever you may think of the style, is gorgeous. You get right up in there, and you're just like, wow. Wow. Okay? Like, they do that work. They do that work. And there are just like different countries with different factory setups with different areas of expertise. If you wear an average, like, basic mass market sneaker like Nike, chances are your shoe is from Southeast Asia. That they have the sneaker factories there and they know how to make sneakers. Okay? They're in Vietnam, they're in Cambodia. Like, these areas have that expertise. And because of all these jobs going overseas over time so that American manufacturers and American companies can save money, we don't have that expertise. We don't have a lot of that expertise for specialty goods. We don't have a lot of the products. Cardi B is wearing Rahul Mishra in her new video. It's so stunning. She looks amazing. Like, yeah. So does Rahul Mishra own his facilities where the fabrics are being embellished? I do. He has facilities. He employs 1,500 people. Like, the details of his business, I do not know, but I do know he employs 1,500 people to make his clothes. Because he also has a ready-to-wear line. I don't think people are aware he also has a ready-to-wear line that sells more than his couture line. And yeah, so he employs all those people. I think I missed a comment. I guess we have to pivot to cotton motorcycles and motorcycle jackets. And I say we because I feel like we're doing it together. This is our brand now. Okay, well, if you feel like donating to our brand, startup costs, let me know. There's a good zipper brand that's all made in USA called You Can. Okay, thank you. I'm gonna get a note of that. Uh, but yeah, Cardi B. So she was supposed to show up to the Rahul Mishra show back in July, but she was late. She like the Rahul Mishra team sent a dress over. Uh, and they even adjusted the fit to cover her booty. Like she don't have a haute couture size booty. You know this, okay? That's not an insult. It's just what it is. And so they altered a dress. They hemmed it because she's a little petite, and they sent it over to her hotel where she was staying. And she showed up late. She was all glammed up. She was wearing the whole kit and caboodle, but she was late. And so she did walk around the venue, but but she likes his stuff. Like she likes wearing his stuff. I've seen a few different like social media things and stuff where she's wearing his stuff. His stuff is really extravagant, really beautifully beaded. Just the beading is crazy. My favorite thing that he's done though is if you follow me on Instagram, you'll have seen it. So there's this dress, and the beads were following this like wave pattern. It was inspired by Klimt, and you know how a lot of like Klimt, like it looks like a galaxy swirling like this. And so he was doing this beading that was like swirling like this. And you know what? He sewed in an invisible zipper that followed the curve of the beads. Okay? Like didn't just blonk straight stick one up through center back, which construction wise would have been easier and simpler. I mean, but it is haute couture after all. But yeah, he set in that invisible zipper to follow the curves of the beading pattern. And I'm like, I love attention to detail like that. Chef's kiss. Chef's kiss. I love it. And then there was a gold coat in January where I straight up went to his face and I said, look, if you find this coat missing, it may have been me, but no, I can't fit in it. But yeah, this coat, like, if I ever wanted to steal something, this coat is the one. India has amazing artisans. I've seen beading and other embellishments from Indian workshops that blew my mind. Yeah, like people just have things. And, for a long time, people used to say you got to get your silks dyed in Korea. Like the dye shops in Korea are apparently really good. I don't know how true that is, but it's something that I would hear in the industry a lot. Like I personally, I did. When I was working at one brand, we did one collection where we were custom, we sent Pantone chips over for bunch of like custom dyed silks and stuff, and we sent them all to Korea. Like the sewing was being done in China, and so the samples were coming from China, but we were dyeing the silks in Korea and sending them over to the factory in China. And I know that there are a lot of factories that are like vertically integrated where they will just take your flat and your tech pack and like just do the whole thing. They do all the processes for you, but there is a lot of advantages to finding the people who do each step the best. That requires more research and a wider network, more time to be like shipping back and forth and doing these kinds of things. So there's pros and cons to each, but yeah, like if you have a specialty product, it can behoove you to do like a few steps in this section and a few steps in another country, factory, whatever, that sort of thing. So, can good quality beading still have beads falling out, or is that a sign of poor quality, poor beading? Yeah, that's poor quality. Like they were not sewing the beads on tightly. I mean, listen, if you watch my How to Shop Quality, I've mentioned this where at the store, you like run your hand over the beads. And if they start loosening, if you feel like, oh, one's going to fall out, like, and they start loosening, that's poor quality. If you don't get abusive, But like if you run your hand over the surface and everything stays intact, it means everything is sewn in. And if you run your hand over and things start feeling like they're loosening, that's poor quality. You can't exactly use that indicator with vintage stuff because you don't know what those clothes have been through. Like maybe someone like really partied too hard in something. Maybe someone wore it and they weren't maybe the right size for it, something like that. Or maybe they should have sent it to a dry cleaner but didn't. And so that's one thing. But if you're looking at a brand new garment and but also when you are buying beaded garments, you should be getting a little satchel of extra beads. Like the brand should be like, how when you buy a shirt, they'll give you a couple of extra buttons in case your buttons pop off your shirt. Companies should be giving you a little satchel of beads so that if you're missing a few beads, you can kind of sew some in and kind of fill in some holes. So, yeah. So back to this comment. I do not think that the situation with the tariffs has overnight changed America's mindset about paying more for garments or for anything really. I think I try to stick to my lane and speak only about the fashion industry because that's what I know, but broad strokes, all these companies, all these industries that source from somewhere else in their supply chain, and they source from a country that has high tariffs, like I don't think it has changed people's minds overnight where they're like, oh, well, these companies have to pay for all these tariffs. So yeah, I am now willing to pay $300-$400 for a dress now. That's simply not happening right now. Like it's not happening in large. Like there may be a couple people where they're like, okay, so I really want to support my favorite small brand. And so I'm going to help them. I really originally wanted this dress. So I'm going to help them. We're going to split the cost of the tariffs. Like there are definitely some people like that, but they are in the extreme minority. The whole country's mindset towards paying more for things because of tariffs, because companies had to pay for the tariffs, or because, manufacturing in America is much more expensive because the cost of living is more expensive here than it is in China or India or these other countries. Like that mentality hasn't changed. And until that mentality hasn't changed, you have to give people a real reason to spend a lot of money. Now, that being said, that whole thing was about everybody, not just for me. I am creating an expensive brand. I make no bones about it. I'm not trying to hide nothing. I am making an expensive brand because this first and foremost is about expressing my creativity and just letting my freak flag fly when it comes to fashion. And so it's going to be expensive and hopefully it's going to look expensive. But I mean, I really don't think the world needs another basics brand. Every day I see on TikTok someone starting a brand of yoga basics. I'm like, what does your brand have that someone else doesn't have? That brings me to another rant, okay? I was thinking about this the other day. I was looking at somebody's clothes and then I was looking at the TikTok and I consume a lot of content because I'm always trying to look at what's going on in the world, both in terms of industry news, I read headlines and different articles, but also I try to see what everyday people are talking about in terms of fashion and things they wear and things they buy. And, I'm on that side of TikTok where people are trying to start their brands and stuff. And I'm just like, and I have said this before, a lot of retailers, especially if you're pursuing wholesale, a lot of retailers are like, what's your story? Stories sell, all this stuff. And I absolutely agree with that. People want the story. And I've gone on rants like this before. It's like, what is your designer point of view? What is your story that brings people to you? What is special about your stuff? But here's the thing. That cannot be the only thing that you have, okay? That cannot be the only thing you have, okay? I went to art school Okay. I didn't just go to fashion school, I went to an art school with a banging fashion program. And what that means is freshman year, I took a bunch of studio classes with people that were studying all different kinds of majors, and we didn't matriculate into our specific majors of study until sophomore year. So I did not have any fashion classes until sophomore year. My freshman year was doing, life drawing, color theory, form and space with everyone. And so I was introduced to a lot of different kinds of artists and designers and the way they think. And if I had a nickel for every time some dude, some girl wanted to be the next Marcel Duchamp, and they would not do the homework and they would pick up garbage on the side of the road and declare it was art just because they decided it was art, because there is no concrete definition of art, and therefore they themselves could also declare that this piece of trash was art and they did not need to explain themselves. Give me a freaking break, okay? Everyone who went to like a foundational art study program like that, like a college like that, they have met this person. This person who thinks they are the reincarnation of Marcel Duchamp. And I'm over it. I've seen enough of the fashion version where they take a t-shirt, they take a hoodie. There's nothing special about it, but they're like, we have this story. And it's like, fuck your story. You need both. You need an interesting, compelling reason why you built this, but also the thing itself should be interesting. I saw a girl on TikTok and she was selling hoodies, but her hoodies were interesting, and she went step by step to show what she had changed from a standard hoodie. Because her whole joke was like, how you always want to steal your boyfriend's hoodie because it's so much cozier than ours. And so she went through and talked about all the design changes she made to the proportions and everything, and to give it that cozy, I stole this from my boyfriend feel for the hoodie. How she changed the proportions, how she used different materials and all these things. So she made a really different kind of hoodie. And so whatever your story is, you still need a product that is interesting. You still need a product that's interesting. Okay? And yeah, like, it's a hoodie. Like, she just makes hoodies, but at the same time, like, it's like oversized, but also it's not super long. Typically when you steal an oversized hoodie from your boyfriend, they're typically taller than you. And so the hoodies end up like, hers was cut so that it's still a little bit shorter, so it's cute. But it was kind of floppy and oversized. And she made the hood a bit bigger because it kind of flopped over, and like, it was really cute. Okay, it was really cute. The material looked very plush. It's on video, so I can't feel it, but So she went through all these details, and I'm like, I could be into that. If I ever felt like I needed to buy another hoodie, I don't. But if I did, I would consider that one because of all these things that she did that seem very appealing, And so you don't need to reinvent the wheel, but you do need to make it different. And you need to tell me specifically, concretely, like this girl did. I changed this proportion. I didn't change this proportion. I used this kind of material. Tell me concretely, specifically, what you did to make this product better. And not just, we just use sumptuous materials. Yeah, sumptuous to who? Okay? That's an opinion. And looks are not everything. Okay? My friend went to Belize on vacation like last year, and they were kayaking somewhere, and these sharks that come up, these like small sharks that come up to them, and he's like, guess what they feel like? And they kind of like have the skin of dolphins to me, just looking at them. And he was like, they feel like sandpaper. And I was kind of laughing because I'm like, they look like they would feel like dolphins. And he was like, no, they feel like sandpaper. Okay, so appearances are for nothing. I want concrete examples of why this is better than X product out there. And so I think that there is a certain level of exhaustion of the story. I think people are like, okay, you have a nice story, you have nice marketing, you have nice brand strategy, but what's so special about the product? And people can't say they invested so much on their brand strategy, and like, what's special about the product? Tell me concretely what you did. I refer back to this a lot, but I think about that girl on TikTok who decided she was going to make a brand of mini skirts for girls with big butts. And she was specifically cutting them for roomier butts so that the hem would still fall parallel to the floor over a really big butt. And I'm over here like, I wish I had that problem, but I don't. But good for you. Like, that's a concrete thing that she did to make her skirts special. Now, if they're ugly, whatever. Okay. So you still have to make it beautiful. I'm just saying, like, think about what you're putting out there. Think about what is missing out there. Okay. I missed a bunch of comments. Okay. I don't want to be disrespectful as everyone can have a niche, but thank you for no more basics. We don't need any more cheap throwaway stuff. Give us unique and long lasting. Give us treasures. Yeah. Like, who was I telling the other day? Like, literally, the world has enough t-shirts. We could just stop t-shirt production right now. There's so many t-shirts in the ecosystem. T-shirts that are unworn and in inventory. T-shirts that are in the secondhand market. T-shirts that got sent overseas. You know, every time there's a political race and like everyone has a victory t-shirt, and then if they don't win the race, all the wrong t-shirts get sent to some other country for them to wear. Like, we have so many t-shirts in the ecosystem. Do we need your t-shirt? Every time someone says something special, like clever on social media, people are always like, I need a t-shirt that says that. No, you don't. No, you don't. If you want to commemorate it so bad, get a sticker. But yeah, 100% no more thin graphic tees and hoodies. Yeah, if you're going to make a hoodie, make it special. Like this one girl. I have the same mindset, honestly. One day, if and when I decide to start a brand, it will absolutely not be normal basic. I found a video once and the title of it implied the girl was starting a fashion brand and it turned out she was selling graphic hoodies. I was stressed out. Well, y'all know how I feel about people who screen print a graphic onto a ready-made garment that they bought and then call themselves a fashion designer. I went to the James Purse sample sale a couple months ago, and they are like the original t-shirt designer. When James Purse first came out in, I think, the 90s, like they've been around for a minute, he was doing these very luxurious t-shirts. No screen print graphics. Like, he has a couple now that have screen print graphics, but for the most part, his stuff is basics, but they have a real focus on materials and luxurious materials. And they were kind of the original luxury t-shirt brand. And then like a lot of people kind of followed suit because they were like, oh, so you don't have to be a real designer. You can just make t-shirts and pretend you're a luxury. Like, but I think James Purse was like the originator of this category, and that's why he's still around and they're still really huge, and their sample sale event was bonkers. But yeah, we don't need any more of those. We don't need any more of those. We just don't. I mean, he has since expanded to other brands or other categories. You know, you can get all kinds of pants, linen dresses, rompers. I got a recycled cashmere coat because, again, I love me a coat. And I got $1,000 off the retail price. But yeah, it's recycled cashmere. So I was like, ooh, this is really nice for recycled cashmere. But yeah, they're like the original luxury t-shirt. People need to just stop. People need to stop. So for many basics brands, the most interesting thing about the brand is the branding itself. I'm interested in paying for clothes, not a cool story. Yeah, like, you need a brand and a brand strategy to get people interested. But if there's nothing interesting beyond that, nobody cares. The other day, I reposted someone. I'm going to try to find it because it was I really enjoyed it. So I was on Threads. Let me go to my profile. Where are my reposts? Oh, here we go. So there's this dude, and his online handle is dye workwear. Dye _ workwear. And I followed him on Twitter. I'm no longer on Twitter. Like, I have an account there, but whatever. And now I follow him on Threads, and he covers a lot of menswear. That's his area of expertise. But he does these incredible deep dives into the history of clothes and just clothing in general, but still focusing on menswear. You can learn so much from him. I highly encourage you to find die_workwear at your social media platform of choice and follow them. But the other day he wrote this: I wish brands would include more technical information in their product descriptions. I don't need to know this was inspired by timeless Italian men summering in Nantucket who could dress up or down. I want to know the weight of the fabric, leather tanning method, seam construction, etc. Same. So I reposted that. And then he wrote another post like in the thread. I also don't need to know that the model is 6'2" and weighs 165 pounds. This is useless information. I need to know his chest size and waist size. Okay, the height is not useless. Okay, especially if you're thinking about inseams and like for women, like the way a dress sits on a woman who's 5'10" versus 5'5" is going to be really different. So the height is not useless, but this arbitrary 165 pounds, 125 pounds, absolutely useless. Two people could be both 5'5" and 125 and look completely different. Body composition, muscle to fat ratio, like everything. Okay. Weight matters so little, and BMI is absolute bullshit. So, yeah, but to have a chest measurement, a waist measurement, absolutely. Absolutely. That's going to help people find their sizes online much more easily. Like, if you want to know why online sales are down, it's because your listings are incomplete. So I really like that. All right, we are past the hour. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you found this live stream fun and informational. I definitely think y'all should follow die_workwear. He's also really slyly funny. So, okay, last comments. Oh my God, yes, I can't even do some studies on their websites. Sometimes they don't even bother mentioning the composition of the fabric. I'm not talking about fast fashion. Oh yeah, totally. Like, I'm like, no, I want to know. Is it rayon? Is it polyester? Give me something. Because it's going to also inform me. Like, again, like I said before, I like natural fibers. I'm a sweaty person. Violet Femme, love dye workwear. Of course you do, because you know all the cool cats. He is so knowledgeable. Very much fun. Bye. Thanks for the live stream. Had a good time. Gonna check out die_workwear. Everyone check out die_workwear. He is a fount of information. Thank you so much for joining me today. Don't forget, new episode of Watch Me Design a Fashion Collection Season 3 will be up on Friday at 10 a.m. And then the next live stream will be every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time.